Okay, hello and welcome to iQuanta's YouTube channel that is dedicated to your success. There is only one goal that we have in our mind at the moment, and that is how do we ensure that you go on to get great scores in the exam. And every single time when I have gone live off late, there is this one question that a lot of individuals have repeatedly asked, and that question is, sir, how do I increase my VARC scores? Now, considering that we have 6 weeks left with us, is that possible? Absolutely yes. And the strategies that I'm going to talk about will help you irrespective of the time frame, but in the next 6 weeks, focus on these areas, these things, and I'm sure you will be able to get a great score. So starting with this, starting with the score equation, how do we really go on to get the score? Now, you don't need to be an Einstein to realize that your score basically depends on the number of attempts and your accuracy rate. So if you want to score more, you need to improve or increase your number of attempts, and you need to improve your accuracy rates. So let us look at each one of these two things one by one and see how we can bring about some incremental change in every aspect, where if you look at all those changes together, you'd suddenly notice that your score has improved dramatically. So let us start with how we can go ahead and increase attempts. So one of the reasons why we've not been able to attempt very many questions could be that we are not left with enough time. So let's pause and ask ourselves a basic question, and the question is, where does my time go during the VARC section? So let's analyze it. So your time can go towards reading the passage in the case of RCs, or reading a paragraph in the case of all of those other paragraph-based questions. And after that, in case of RCs, you'd also go ahead and read the question. So can we somehow reduce our time that we spend here? Well, yes, and you can do that by working on your reading speed. Now see, I do not want you to go consciously faster while writing the mocks and while writing the actual exam. During the mock, during the actual exam, you are supposed to work at the level of your comfort zone speed. The speed at which you're comfortable with. If you push yourself there, chances are that it will have adverse effects, but you can definitely work on increasing your reading speed in the interim by introducing a speed session to your everyday schedule. I have talked about speed in our batches, in our classes, and what exactly you can do. But the essence of it is that you take out at least 15 minutes every day, where the solitary thing that you focus on is reading fast. The other things are not that important during that session. So in a way, we treat that session as a session in which we train our eyes to move faster. So you too can introduce a reading speed as part of your schedule, and within the next 6 odd weeks, if you can do it regularly for 15, 20, 30 minutes, you would notice that you will increase your reading speed, even your comfort zone speed. So imagine if you manage to double your reading speed, then the time that you spend here will be cut down by half. Moreover, in the case of passages, just check it once. Do you read for the overview, or do you have the tendency to read for the details? Because if you're reading for the details, then that is going to cause a problem in itself as well. So make sure that you read for the overview and you work on your reading speed. This will help you not only in VARC but across the paper. Why? No matter which section you attempt, DIL or Quant, the first thing that you do is you read, and the increase in the speed will help you everywhere. So chances are that by working on this, you can very easily reduce some 3, 4, 5 minutes that you spend on these two things, and that in itself will allow you to attempt a couple of extra questions. So there you go. So take the speed session seriously, and that should help. Apart from that, you may spend time on interpreting the question. What does this question ask? Right? And thereafter, once you interpret the question, now you decide, hey, should I attempt this question or should I skip this question? So that's an aspect where the time goes. And after that, in case you do decide to attempt it, you may spend some time thinking about the approach that needs to be used while answering this particular question, and finally your time goes towards executing that approach, and in case you are stuck between two answer choices, well, eliminating between them. So now let's take these. So when it comes to interpreting the question, I am sure in the VA segment this is not a problem. By now you already know those 4 paragraph based question types thoroughly. But when it comes to reading comprehension, there are all these different question types. And apart from these question types, there are variations. Right? So I can directly ask you which of the following can be inferred, or I can get into which of the following can be inferred except. I can directly ask you which of the following, if true, weakens the stance of the author, or I can say which of the following, if false, will weaken the author's argument except. So you notice these convoluted question stems, yeah? And we have to pause and then think of what is getting asked there. But then, yes, there are different question types. Yes, there are convoluted ways of asking. But at the end of the day, there are only a finite number of question stems. If you sit down, you're probably dealing with 20, 30, 40 different question stems. So instead of pausing in the examination hall and then thinking what it asks, why not revise these question stems every day? Understand them once and then keep on revising them. And in case you are not able to understand one of those question stems, send that my way and I'll tell you the correct way of interpreting it. You can then start revising that, and that will automatically take care of the fact that your interpretation is right. And not only that, because you're doing it every day, because you're revising those every day, the time that you take here on interpreting the question will automatically go down. So saving. Then deciding to attempt a question or not. Now, this is very intricately linked with self-awareness. See, there are a couple of things that I want you to be aware of. Number one, your accuracy rate in different question types, and number two, the time that you consume to answer those questions. So once you are aware of these two things, then deciding to attempt the question or leave that question out becomes pretty sorted. So any question that you know will take you more than 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, anything that takes you more than 2.5 minutes, you won't even touch it. Anything that takes you around 2 minutes, well, this may not exactly be a priority question type. And then similarly, accuracy rates. Now, there are some questions where you know you don't get them right. Huh? Let's say there are these questions where your accuracy rate is around 30%. I know that you leave those questions. In case there is a question type where your accuracy rate is, let us say, 80%, then I know that you go ahead and attempt this question. But what about those questions where your accuracy rate is 50%? Now, this is a question type that wastes a lot of time. So any question where your accuracy rate is hovering around 50%, when you sit down to write the mock, just be clear that you're not going to attempt it. These are the ones that you're going to attempt. During practice, between one mock and the next, put in efforts to shift it from 50% to 70%, 80%, so that you can start attempting it. But in your mind, when you sit down and write the exam, be very clear that if your accuracy rate is around 50% or lower, you will not attempt it. Okay, so this automatically makes your decision making less time consuming, so you save time there. And in case you attempt it, then you need to think of the approach. But this, once again, is something that can be done outside of the examination hall. And when you work with me on passages, on questions, I emphasize this so much every single time. Remember, whenever we solve an inference-based question, what do I tell you? Hey, we'll go to the options and we'll start applying that label. True, false, can't say. If it's a tone-based question, we'll start with the author was positive, negative, or neutral. Then we go to the answer choices and label the options as positive, negative, neutral. And then we match it and we are able to eliminate options faster. Right? If it's a main idea question, start by thinking of the subject matter and the purpose and then go to the options. And when you go to the options, the wrong answer choice can be contradictory, narrow, broad, or alien. So you start labeling them accordingly. Right? So master the approach for each one of those question types outside. Just decide on this beforehand that this is exactly what I'm going to do. So that will once again reduce the time that you spend in the exam, and then finally executing or eliminating. So when it comes to English, I think execution in verbal ability can take a while, solving parajumbles, so locating the clues, etc. and all that, and then linking it, that can take time. But then if you practice, then through practice, you can bring the time down for execution. And in RCs, a bigger thing will be eliminating wrong answer choices. But even here, if you know the correct technique, which will be the most effective way of arriving at a unique answer, remember, main idea questions, 180-degree approach, weakening questions, you look for the impact on premises and assumptions, and you ignore those that talk about the conclusion directly, right? So those strategies can help you rule out the answer choices significantly faster. So you can learn those here. So practice for VA and learn the right tools and techniques for eliminating in RCs, and that will once again reduce the time. So if I combine all of these things together, I think all in all, I won't be surprised to see if you end up saving a good 7-8 minutes, which means that you'd automatically be able to attempt maybe 3, 4, even 5 additional questions. And as your attempts go up, well, hopefully your score will also go up, provided we are accurate. So how do we increase or improve our accuracy rates? So let's see. Let's once again start off by thinking over a question. So I attempted a question. I could not get it right. What could go wrong? Why couldn't I answer it? Let's see. I may not be able to answer it because I could not even understand the question. I misinterpreted it. Remember those earlier classes that you worked, where you and I, we worked together on certain areas? In my very first class, I asked, what do we understand by tone? And a lot of people were not very clear about what tone is. So if you are somebody who has gone through that class and you have that clarity, great. But then what if you are somebody who has not gone through that session, and when you look at tone, you don't know exactly what it is that is getting asked? So that ambiguity, that lack of clarity will also reflect in your accuracy rate. So make sure that you do understand the questions, but this is something that you're already doing in terms of increasing your speed as well, reducing the time as well. We talked about it on the previous slide, so we can skip this, but make sure that you do it. Thereafter, what about the simple fact that in order to get that question right, you needed to possess certain abilities, certain competencies? It can be knowledge, it can be skill, it can be technique, but what if you did not possess that necessary element? So you may go get it wrong. So in order to improve from this particular perspective, just identify some kind of pattern in your errors. Okay, so for example, let us say you are getting the main idea question wrong. What does it tell us? It tells us that we don't have the ability to generate a mental overview of the passage. And now that we have identified it, we can roll out a plan that helps us become better at generating mental overviews. So our classes have given you enough detail on that. Or let us say you are consistently getting these inference-based questions wrong. Then you know that you need to refine your ability to identify the differences between true, false, and can't say, and that you need to take a step back, go to critical reasoning, solve questions there, and then come back. Or for example, let us say it's a tone that you get wrong so very often. Then it could be your inability to figure out the connotations of the words involved in the passage. It could be that you are yet to work on enhancing your tone-related vocabulary. So depending upon the question type that you go wrong, you'd be able to figure out which competency, ability, skill, technique you need to add to your arsenal, rule out that requisite plan, and your accuracy will definitely improve. Moving on from this, there are times when we have a tendency to go faster. Now, what do I mean by that? So there is a question, let's say parajumbles. Whenever you sit at home and solve a parajumble, you realize that it takes you, say, 135 seconds. So that is the pace at which you usually attempt a parajumble and you get it right. But in the exam, because we want to attempt more, we at times tend to go faster. So instead of allocating 135 seconds, what if you try to do it in 110 seconds, 100 seconds? Now you don't have that ability. So when you do that, your accuracy rates may once again start suffering. So please do not try to go faster than what you are capable of at that particular moment. You can work up speed through your preparation, but you cannot instantly jack it up in the exam. So during your preparation, try to attempt more. But in the exam, you're just supposed to show your level of preparation. So calm down, relax, and restrict yourself to the pace that you know works for you in the practice. And finally, the last thing that affects us is pressure. Yes, it is real. So I see year after year where people will get 1 or 2 questions wrong that they otherwise would have gotten right, but they don't know why. You know, the moment you are done submitting your mock and you start reviewing, you look at that question and you're like, "Arey, I knew it should be C. Why did I mark B?" Well, that was pressure. So when you see that clock ticking, then you see that you are in that exam situation now, it can at times bog us down. It is normal. It happens to all of us, but you can focus on minimizing the ill effects of pressure. So how do you do that? You can do that through meditation. You can do that through some sort of visualization. For example, you know, a lot of Olympic athletes, what they do, every time when they go for a practice session, they remind themselves that this is real. I am going to treat it as my actual event. And they do that day after day, week after week, month after month throughout their preparation. But when they reach that actual D-Day, the day of their event, they just relax and they remind themselves that, hey, it's just another practice session. So that takes the pressure off. You can adopt some special techniques. For example, there is a technique that I've experimented with and it helped me. I used to fill a bowl with water. So fill a bowl with water. Now the deal is you're supposed to focus on the entire rim of that bowl. Now how do you focus on the entire rim of the bowl? See, if you look at that rim directly, you will be able to focus only on a part of that rim, a point on that rim. The trick is your focus should be elsewhere. Your awareness should be on the rim. And that mentally trains you, teaches you to be a little detached. And that can help. So whatever works for you. Visualization works, do that. The bowl works, do that. Meditation works, do that. Make sure that you go ahead and reduce that pressure so that you are able to perform to the best of your ability. And using these measures, even if you start getting 2 extra questions right than what you get today, even if it's a marginal increase, imagine combine it with the previous slide where you've saved 5, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, then you are a little bit more accurate. All of these things taken together can eventually translate into getting 4 or 5 extra questions right, getting 15 to 20 extra marks to your kitty. And that's absolutely awesome. So make sure that you roll out the plan that we have talked about and look for the impact of this plan. You'd start noticing a steady increase within a couple of weeks. And please remember, it all begins with determination and effort. These are the 2 things that you are supposed to bring in. But what direction should your effort be put in? That's something that we are there for. So if you're struggling anywhere else and you need us to point out the right path for you to put your efforts on, put it down in the comments below and we'd absolutely come and help you. So that's it from me today. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until I see you next, stay safe, stay focused, stay in touch. Have a great time ahead. Good luck.